Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and this is a video response to what Genesis got wrong. And I just wanted to comment because I've been reading a pile of Joseph Campbell books. I've been into him for about 10 years. I just got the new stuff, Thou Art That, and a pile of other ones of his lectures after he passed on, and stuff that the Joseph Campbell Foundation had been releasing. And even way back in the 70s and 80s, Campbell was dealing with the same problem. And I found some answers, probably to these questions and to these series of videos that a lot of skeptics have been posting here on YouTube. And I'm agnostic, I'm not atheist, nor a theist. I stopped in the middle for this reason. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who ask me and think that I give atheists a bad connotation. I don't mean to do that. I stopped in the middle for a reason. Joseph Campbell was those reasons. It's personal, because I thought if I became atheist, I would rationalize the metaphor too much and not be able to appreciate the literature, which I know a lot of atheists do appreciate religious literatures. They just don't like the fan clubs of religion, because I know how oppressing it can be. I came out of fundamentalism myself. So what I wanted to read, and why Joseph Campbell speaks to me so much, and he reintroduced me after my anger stage of leaving fundamentalism to the literature, and why all this stuff is important to me, anyways, and how I can use it, and how I can once again appreciate the metaphors and how they're interpreted in my personal life. So this is what he has to say about it. And he was asked a question: can you explain what you mean by the problem of mythology in our time? A mythological image is one that evokes and directs psychological energy. It is an energy evoking and energy directing sign. A mythology is a system of affect or emotional images. These representations themselves produce this emotion or effect. Our own mythology, yours and mine, is our particular heritage of affect images. Look, however, at what has been done to our mythology. On the rational level, the images are said to be absurd and, therefore, to have no meaning. Our rational system thus breaks their connections and makes their energy unavailable to us in our lives. So that's what happens when we try to rationalize everything. This did not happen in the history of art. You can still get metaphorical experiences and be in awe of a painting, because there's no stark belief of ethnic, sociological, or orthodox guidelines on how we're supposed to read that piece of literature or how we're supposed to view that painting. However, when it comes to religious literature, there are institutions that do not allow reinterpretation of the metaphor in contemporary terms, which is a big problem which this video underlines. Because on one hand, you got people saying it's all junk. On the other hand, you got people saying it's all true, but they do a crappy job at rationalizing it in a contemporary format. This stuff needs to change. And because it does not change, it does not speak to our society and to the individual so that the person can get the experience that it once had from it, and they become disillusioned, and they end up leaving churches being frustrated because the metaphors don't speak to them. So we lean more to the rational side rather than being also developing the other side that maybe is becoming more and more unknown, the creative and emotional side. And it's the emotional side, because of its underdevelopment, gets taken advantage of the most. So this is what Campbell goes on to say. Secondly, our symbols have been rendered neutral by institutional religions that interpret these symbols historically. Symbols that address the mystery of the psyche or soul have been interpreted instead as references to actual historical events which, as modern scholarship tells us, did not occur. As long as people could think that there had been a Garden of Eden with a serpent that spoke to Adam and Eve, and in that garden an incident resembling a fall occurred, making a redemption to restore us necessary, and as long as people could think that there had been a world flood, a Tower of Babel, an Abraham, an exodus from Egypt, an edition of the Ten Commandments entrusted physically to Moses on top of Sinai, followed by a second edition delivered to him after he'd broken up the first tablets. As long as people could conceive of and accept these things as historical events, they could also accept these symbols and move with them through their churches and temples as well as their religious traditions. As soon, however, as people began to realize that it is very dubious that these events ever took place, their symbols lose their historical character and their emotional energy is thereby depleted and diminished. Thirdly, when Freud told the world that these symbols really refer to mother, father, and little boy, they were separated from their original reference points in the mythological tradition. There are mythologies that are scattered, broken up all around us, and we stand on what I call a terminal moraine of shattered mythic systems that once structured society. They can be detected all around us. You can select any of the fragments to activate your imagination for your own use. Let it help to shape your own relationship to the unconscious system out of which these symbols have come. So, for some reason, that's why. Ritual no longer happens. Only in movements that protest, maybe, where the picket line ends up being the sacred space. Right now we have environmental fundamentalism happening, a whole bunch of different things. Protests dealing with religion and race, especially religion and same-sex marriage, those kinds of things, both for and against people participating in rituals. However, there's no real meaningful rituals because it's been saturated with dogma and historical accuracy, the need for historical accuracy. And science has proved it wrong. However, metaphor transcends that. I read Calvin's ideas today on Tablet 2 of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in reading the Iliad, when Zeus decides if Patroclus should live or die, and also the fate of Hector, if he should live or die. So all this stuff isn't new. These theological systems come out. You can read about the ideas from Paul and Euripides and the Bacchus cults, things like that, the Eleusinian mystery cults of life and death, everlasting life, and you can see how a lot of these belief systems took it from an ethnic to a specific ethnic group to a specific social group and tried to break that out to a global group. Judaism has not done that. It's very hard to get into Judaism. Islam is trying to do that right now, but they're having some trouble, I believe. Mormonism is trying to do that now, and they're having some trouble. But I think that overall, I have a great appreciation for literature, religious literature of all kinds, and art and dance, and anything that deals with the metaphor. And I think that people need to, in order to experience life to the fullest, need to also experience that other side that we are currently shunning and turning off because it abused us. We need to reopen that. We need to reopen that. So take care, friends, and remember, we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god, and where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves, and where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence, and where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. That's Joseph Campbell out of The Power of the Myth, my favorite quote. Take care, friends, and remember,